All right, let's get into our first topic then, and it's the breaking news that Prince Harry has settled his lawsuit with the publishers of The Sun and the News of the World. He took legal action over the allegations of unlawful information gathering at News Group newspapers, but the trial has now been called off after they reached an agreement. Harry has received a full and unequivocal apology from News Group newspapers for serious intrusion into his private life by The Sun. That was between 1996 and 2011, including unlawful activity carried out by private investigators. Now, the publishers also apologised for phone hacking at the now-defunct News of the World and for intruding into the life of his mother, Princess Diana. Rupert Murdoch's firm also agreed to pay Harry substantial damages. Now, Harry battled for 5 years to bring the lawsuit to trial and has said just last month that he was the only person with deep enough pockets to get accountability from the press. So, was he right to settle his claim now? Jovan?
Well, firstly, I think he's done such an extraordinary thing, going essentially to war with the media. And I think he's done it to basically save an aspect of democracy, because we can't have journalists and the kind of media establishment snooping into people's lives in the way that they have, and I think it's really commendable. I think he should have just kept on going. That's my view. So
actually maybe not right to settle now, and it would have been nice to see that whole trial and actually see what the journalists had been doing, because, I mean, we don't have a huge amount of detail now.
Well, as he said, he's got deep pockets. He's the one that can do it on all of our behalves. And so I think it was obviously, in my view, an early settlement on his part. But I think the kind of consequences it's probably had to his family, to his mental health, I can understand why he would settle as soon as he had. But I think he is kind of the person that is leading this fight against what is a sense of kind of corruption and snooping in a way that I don't think is acceptable in the British press.
Yesterday we spoke about this and we had Cherry Healey on, and Cherry Healey said that he would sort of lose face with the British public if he had settled this case. Now he has. Do you think that's true? Do you think his reputation might be in tatters?
Well, I think Harry, respectfully, I would disagree with what you say, because I think he has said all along this is about accountability. It's not about money. Now, he's forfeited the opportunity to have a formal legal ruling saying there was wrongdoing. Yes, they have offered the apology that you've read out. He will appear to be inconsistent. He will appear to be somebody who cannot see things through properly. We know that when things are not clear-cut, he also won't have set a legal precedent, because it won't become case law, I imagine, because there isn't a formal ruling. And the judge said himself, well, why hasn't this been discussed, before? Why are you only settling now? I think it's unfair to badge all the media and certainly the print journalists with what happened, which was lamentable and unacceptable, because there's a lot of responsibility across the media. So I think it's very important to say that.
He has caught out a few papers now.
He has. And that actually, well, look, the News of the World closed down after the phone hacking. So, yes. But in terms of what Harry's done, because the specific question is, should he have settled? The perception is that he has compromised, OK? Now, he said he has deep pockets. He said it was about accountability. Both of those things he has now sort of U-turned on. We know that Harry hates the press. In his mind, the paparazzi, and of course we're talking about international press as well, killed his mother, because of the nature of her terrible death. And I understand that as a 12-year-old boy, so horrendously bereaved, he has carried those scars and that hurt all these years. And he's entitled to his views on whatever his perspective is on the press. But if he is going to be the beacon of light that shows that we have to call out wrongdoing within the media, where those fall below the standard expected of responsible journalism, then see it through, for goodness sake. See it through.
Interesting. Well, Harry's lawyer, David Sherborne, has called it a monumental victory and had this to say.
In a monumental victory today, News UK have admitted that The Sun, the flagship title for Rupert Murdoch's UK media empire, has indeed engaged in illegal practices. This represents a vindication for the hundreds of other claimants who were strong-armed into settling without being able to get to the truth of what was done to them. News UK is finally held to account for its illegal actions and its blatant disregard for the law.
Now, that's what his lawyer had to say. Interesting, yesterday when we spoke about it as well, we had a caller say that Harry's just in it for the money. That was the accusation that was thrown at him. Now, obviously, in this case, my rebuttal to that statement was actually this is quite a risky business. If you're looking to make money out of a case, this wasn't the one to go for. However, now he has settled at the last minute, and we don't know how much he's gained from this, but it was substantial. It's alleged that it was a substantial amount. Is this making it look more and more like it was a money grab?
I don't think so in this situation. I think that he's someone who actually is quite concerned about the kind of overarching media that we're seeing. As we've said, he's grown up under such immense scrutiny, the experience he's had alongside his mum. I think he's actually minded by doing the right thing. He's obviously got his own family. He's felt as though he had to leave the UK and go to America, which I think is quite unfortunate. But he's doing that for the protection of his family. I think he's actually doing it in the democratic interests of this country to ensure that there is greater accountability. He does have the deep pockets. I wish he kind of kept on going.
But so why do you think he didn't? I suppose because Angela's accusation, I suppose, will be that if you're doing this for a moral reason and it isn't financial and you do have deep enough pockets, then go through with it.
Absolutely, but I just think he does have it does take a lot of mental toll on you. It's quite exhausting. I think he has been through a lot, and I can see why he would settle at this point to kind of bring about some cut to all of this. But I don't know. I think that on this situation, he should have kept on going, but it's a very exhausting
I just want to show you a quick clip of what Harry said. I think it was just last month about why he was going through with this trial when 40 other claimants had dropped out and already settled because of the financial risk involved in it.
No, I know why people have settled. They've settled because they've had to settle. So therefore, one of the main reasons for seeing this through is accountability, because I'm the last person that can actually achieve that. And also closure for these 1,300 people and families. But I scratch my head thinking, wow, is this already a moment that has passed? And that's certainly what they would like to believe and think, right? They would say, this is historical. Well, I've had to wait 5 years, 5 years for my claim. And in those 5 years, the retaliation and the intimidation for me as a witness has been quite extraordinary, especially with the attacks towards my wife and children.
Which brings into question why between then and now has he decided to settle? Scott from Bedfordshire, why do you think Harry settled this morning?
Well, I mean, I'm quite disappointed that he took it because he is the only person that could have took it further. As everyone keeps saying, he's got big enough pockets. But to me, accountability for what? No one's been held to account because he's settled out of court. So he's achieved nothing. There's 40 other people that were in this that have been taken them to court, and none of them could go all the way and hold it because they couldn't afford it. Harry's got a massive fortune in the last few years selling stories, so he could have afforded it. If it wasn't about the money, then he would have gone further.
OK, what would you say to that? Jovan, do you think anyone has been held to account over this?
Well, I think in this situation, he's already said it was about the intimidation that his family have experienced. I think it's quite right that he does take some break and accountability for himself, about his own mental well-being in all of this. I don't think it is entirely about money, as some people are saying. I do wish he did take it further. But you do have to say that this is a man who's got his family, who's been haunted by the press for his entire life. There comes a point where maybe it just gets a bit too much.
Yes, but, sorry.
No, I was just going to go to Scott. You say that nobody's taken accountability, but actually an apology has been made, quite an extensive apology, and damages has been paid, not just to Harry, which we know is substantial, but we don't know the exact amount. That may come out and we'll keep you posted if we hear anything, but to the 40 other claimants. So there is accountability involved in that. No precedent set legally, but we know what they were up to.
Who was the person that apologised?
Well, the news group apologised.
Yeah, but it's like a big blank face.
So you want the individual journalists who hired the investigative journalists or the investigators, private investigators, you want them named and shamed?
Let's go down to ground roots and find who started it.
Right, so you did want just a fuller investigation. All right, Scott, thank you very much for your call. Mary from Glasgow, what's your thoughts on this? Are you disappointed he settled?
Well, I'm disappointed for the reason that he said it wasn't for the money. If that is the case, give the money to charity, and then what he said would be perfectly acceptable.
Well, Mary, he may give the money to charity. We don't know what he's going to do with the money. We don't know how much money was involved.
We don't know. We don't know. And we'll never know if he gave it to charity. And if he was going to do that, he could have made his intentions clear, and this argument would be completely unnecessary then.
Okay, so, right, but if we take the money element out of this, do you think he had any higher aim in order to clean up British journalism and the British press? Do you think that was a
I can understand that completely, but the reason is he said it wasn't for the money, and now he's accepting money, so has he proved anything about the British press?
You see, he had
any press?
I think Mary's right, because he had if this was a landmark moment for Harry, he could have held his nerve and continued for as long as it would take, and then got all the he's always said he's all about transparency. If it had gone the full way, then everything would have been paraded in full public view, and all the specific details in the case would have been laid out, would have been laid bare. And that would have been, had there been, and clearly by the nature of the apology, there's been some egregious behaviour here, it would have been unequivocal, it would have been non-negotiable what has gone on. But that transparency hasn't, all I was going to say is that transparency hasn't occurred because he's settled, and therefore it is perceived that he has forfeited that opportunity, and therefore he's sort of shying away from it. And we know when settlements happen, if you look at the Prince Andrew settlement, entirely different case with Virginia Giuffre, in which he paid whatever it was, £12 million?
An
$12 million?
extremely large amount.
A very lot of money, as they say around our neck of the woods. He says, I didn't do it, but I'm paying the money. So,
that's not
both
the case
ways.
In this situation.
No,
they have
it's not.
admitted to
There is an admission here, but what I'm
behaviour.
saying is when it doesn't proceed to a full legal ruling, there's always massive scope for sort of lack of clarity.
But here is where I think then Harry was in a rock and a hard place, and whatever way he was going to play this, he was going to get criticism for it, because yesterday when we discussed it, why is he taking this to court? This is going to drag his family through the mud again. This is terrible for his father. His father's going through cancer. He can't do this. Maybe actually that's part of the reason he is settled. Maybe he is settled because although he wants to drag the newspapers through this, he wants to go through the nitty-gritty, it would serve him well, it'd be good for his constitution and his mental health. He understands it's probably not going to be good for the royal family's reputation and potentially his father's health either.
Well, his father was diagnosed a year ago, and we're hoping that he's on the road to recovery like the Princess of Wales. I do hope so. And in terms of reputational damage to the royal family, I bring you as a witness for the prosecution the Oprah Winfrey interview. I don't think Harry is too concerned about reputational damage.
Maybe when we know better, we do better. And actually, Harry's thought, if I want to I'm literally playing devil's advocate.
I appreciate that.
That's my view. This is a man who has grown up under such immense scrutiny and has had people constantly viewing every single activity that he's ever engaged in. And this is obviously quite a stressful process for him. It's incorporated and implicated aspects of his family. He obviously doesn't live here anymore. He's caught up in all of this. His dad's unwell. I think it's quite reasonable to suggest or accept the reasons why he has settled when he has. I do wish he had just gone further for the interest of the public, but I completely understand. This is a man who's had quite a difficult, albeit he's a prince, there's no doubt about it, but in terms of his reportage within the media, he has had quite a difficult set of circumstances that are quite unreasonable, I would say. Interesting
thing is, yesterday the debate was very sort of binary on whether he should or shouldn't take the newspapers to task. But today it seems that even those that didn't really want him to take this to court are disappointed that he seems to have settled this early. Robin from Gloucestershire, what's your view on this?
I feel really sad about this. I wish he had pursued it through the courts. I mean, I can see there are lots of hidden pressures that he wouldn't want to, but I think it would be one voice. It's David and Goliath. I mean, I think the public, it would have been great for me and for other people and their feelings about the corrupt press if he had pursued it. I just feel very sad about that.
All right, Robin, thank you for your call. We should also note the other person that was taking NGN to task was a former politician, or probably current politician, Tom Watson, Lord Tom Watson, and he has called for NGN to apologise to the King himself today. Graham from Glasgow, what's your thoughts on this?
Good morning. I'm impressed with Prince Harry for doing it, because it's a very bold and brave thing to do.
Settling or
very
taking
hard.
them to court in the first place?
Aye, it must have been stressful and a very difficult decision for him to do, even though he lives in the public eye.
Which part, settling, Graham, or taking the newspaper to court?
Well, I think he's won in both accounts.
Okay.
Just because he's took them to court and he stood up this long to force people to look at people's rights, and then to settle, he's getting an apology, so he's won.
All right,
On
Graham.
2 accounts. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to go to court because financially they're drained his resources. And it makes people look at copyright for individuals, and hopefully things can get moved on from there, and I hope he takes part in stuff like that.
Right, you've lost me a little bit on the last bit, but certainly it was financial reasons likely that he settled. Graham, thank you very much for had a part in it. Graham from Manchester, what's your view when it comes to Harry settling? Are you disappointed, or perhaps you think this is the right decision and it's a win because NGNs had to apologise?
Well, yeah, I'm just glad it's all over with. But I was looking before that, Mary from Glasgow. I don't know how much his settle was, how much he got, but I think he should, if he said he didn't want it for the money, which is obviously said, why does he not give that money to a charity, share it out? Because there's a lot of charities out there are very, very skint.
Yeah.
And they'd love that. And if he did that, I think he'd bring the public back as well.
You've got to remember, though, that Gary, that the judge hasn't ruled on this. We're all assuming that the judge would have ruled in his favour. It hasn't been heard by a judge. The perception here is that Harry has compromised his values. And I understand all the reasons about the personal cost at pursuing this. But if we just look at it globally, and we're talking about the land of newspaper headlines and, goldfish amount of time we look at things and how much the attention span of people, the fact is, the perception is that this young man over here has compromised. He has compromised.
Jovan?
He hasn't compromised his values. I think the fact that he's gone through this entire process already as it stands suggests that he recognises something that has gone wrong and he wants to see greater accountability. Them acknowledging illegality, them apologising, I think is the right step. It's been a laborious process, it's been a long process, and so I don't think he's abdicated in any values. I think he's actually been quite forthright.
I like abdicated. Very appropriate.
Listen, Gary, thank you very much for your calls. Thanks for all your calls on that.